Good day, sir. How are you, Cameron?
Doing well, Ryan. How are you?
Swell, thank you. So I'm pumped to have you on. Let's dive right into this because I don't give the big formal introduction. I want the person to tell their story so people can get to know you better from your view. So why don't you tell people who you are and how did you get to do what you're doing now?
Yeah. So my name is Cameron Sparks. Was born and raised in North Central Massachusetts, relocated to Boulder, Colorado about 2.5 years ago. And the simplest way that I can put me in my story is that I grew up super overweight and insecure. A huge portion of my story and why I feel like I'm able to help people in regards to exercise and just why it's so hard when you first get going is because, I've been on the other side of it. So growing up super overweight, and I'm talking like when I was in eighth grade, I can remember being 220 pounds. And I'm sure most people don't know, what an eighth grader weighs, but 220 pounds was well and above what is a healthy weight for that age of kid, 13, 14 years old. I was picked on a lot growing up, tried every single sport under the sun: soccer, basketball, football, ice hockey, and none of them stuck. I just always felt very less than, and like I was always one of the bigger kids, and again, would get made fun of and whatnot. And it wasn't until I got accepted into a new high school and was able to kind of break away from my toxic friends and just the environment that I had always known that I decided to finally do something about my insecurity and heaviness, for lack of a better way of putting it. And from eighth grade going into my freshman year of high school, I lost 60 pounds. So not only was I able to kind of separate myself from the person that I had always been, but I was very much able to reinvent myself as well. I was going to a new high school. No one knew me. I was just able to get a clean slate and a fresh start, really. So I had never touched a weight during this weight loss, which is something I would like to talk about and how that really set me back more than I would have liked it to. So I went from 220 as an eighth grader, 14-year-old kid, dropped 60 pounds, and I went into high school weighing 150 pounds. And the weight loss was very significant. I mean, I look back and it doesn't even feel like that super, super heavy kid is the same person that I am today. And I think I remember hearing in a podcast you were on in the past that you were also heavier growing up. So I'm sure you can relate to a lot of this stuff. But going from super overweight to more or less just skin and bones with no muscle on my frame was a crazy transition. And I would have liked to think in reflection that I felt super confident and that I was this just new person. But in actuality, I felt far more insecure after having all that weight loss because I was just so hyper aware, like way more self-aware than I should have been about my new state of being. I was very like skinny fat, again, more insecure than I had been than when I was super overweight, which was unfortunate. But how I got into all of this was because I had this massive transformation, and then I basically had to build myself back up because, again, without working out, without strength training, I didn't hold on to any of the muscle mass that I did have when I was a heavier set kid. And so I was basically starting from like ground zero. I went into all of this in a super, super unhealthy, unnatural way and just had to basically repair all the damage that I had done from losing it without strength training. So that's how I got into all of this stuff. And then it's been 10 years since then, and I've come a really, really long way. But I think what makes me and my story unique, especially in regards to being a coach, is the fact that I've been on the other side of it. And I know what it's like to feel insecure. I know what it's like to feel scared to go into the gym. And yeah, it was a struggle for quite a long time, but we bounced back, and I'm so, so grateful that I had to go through those struggles because it made me who I am today, and it made me the coach that I am today.
I love how you concluded with that, being grateful for it. And that's,
Yeah.
I mean, I think coaches will always try to come out of it thinking about gratitude through the perseverance and creating that character. And that's fortunately what you end up with when you're on the other side. When you're going through it, it's really hard to see it. But man, that's so fascinating. 220 pounds, and you said 220, and you didn't say your age, you said young kid. And then later on you said 14 years old. I'm like, oh, it's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, that's crazy transformation. And then to go on the flip side, where then you're saying, oh yeah, then it was like just really skinny, and then it was even worse. And I hyper fixated on it. And I imagine that probably is even probably part of the process that caused that fixation is like, hey, I'm going to get in great shape, reinvent myself. Then you're focused on it, right? So you're going hard at it, going hard at it, going hard at it. And it's like when you weren't going hard at it, you weren't fixating on it. Even to this very day, if I'm in a muscle building phase, I'm going to be a little softer, right? It's, it's bulking season. Now I don't dirty bulk, but I accept that I might not have visible abs for a time period. And it works because then you build some muscle. Then the moment you're trying to lose body fat, you're like, oh my God, I'm chubby. And then so you're really obsessive. You're like really analyzing it. And then you're like, you don't even care about your muscle size. You're just trying to get lean. So it's like whatever your inherent goal is creates this kind of obsession. So I think that's super fascinating that it created kind of the opposite of what you would expect in that. But I really, really value that. As soon as you said, it's a very overweight kid, I'm like, okay, we're gonna get along here. We're gonna be on the same page because, it's so different, especially in the fitness industry, that when you've been through that, and yours is worse. Like I always try to give credit that my transformation was pretty subtle. I went from being a slightly overweight kid most of my childhood. And then in the teens, right around puberty, I actually had a benefit of hitting puberty and get a bit taller and getting into weight. So I kind of simultaneously slimmed out and then gained some muscle. So it was a change, but it wasn't a transformation. Not like what you're talking about, what you went through. And I think that gives you even more, appreciation, deep empathy and understanding for what people go through. Because a lot of people need that. They need that understanding. Do you ever feel, and this is just I know it's a feeling, and I don't think it's justified to feel this way about other coaches, but do you ever feel like coaches who didn't have to come from it don't quite get it? And I think maybe it's a bias, but I'm curious if you have the same vibe.
I think they can understand logically and emotionally through just like all the behavior change learning that comes with being a coach, what it must feel like. But I think unless you've been through it, it's really hard to like resonate with what that feels like. Because like I said, I think I'm in a unique perspective or unique position in that I can still like close my eyes and just remember viscerally just the insecurity and the lack of confidence and the self-doubt that was tied up in all of that, and compounded with going to a new high school where none of these kids knew me. Like I had mentioned, you would think that, oh, clean slate, I can be whoever I want to be. But I was so wrapped up in all of my own stuff that it was impossible for me to present with the confidence that I so badly wanted and so much expected from having lost all this weight. I very much thought all my insecurities and self-doubt were due to the weight, but it was still there after the weight was gone, which was a really tough pill to swallow and took me a long time to, sift through all of that stuff. So while I fully think coaches understand the pain and the discomfort and the, lack of confidence that come with being overweight, I do at the same time think it's hard for them to really grasp it, because some people have just always been in relatively decent shape, or they've just never struggled with their body image. But for the first 5 or 6 years of my fitness journey, even going into early college where I like gained a lot of weight back, the freshman 15, they call it, when you first go away to college and you have free reign at the food hall and whatnot, it was a really ever present thing for a long time. So like I said, I think they understand it, but I think to really understand it is another thing. And I think you do have to go through it to really get a grasp on what that feels like.
I think that's well stated. And it's great that you're giving that credit, because I agree. You'll understand the principles. And the description I use, depending on the coach, because some coaches could have great deep empathy and appreciation for where someone's coming from without ever living it. Like it's totally possible. And when it comes to like even the nutrition principles are going to be the same, training principles are going to be the same, right? So they don't know how to help you. And I'll say that I didn't really ever have like a significantly difficult time growing muscle, but I have clients that I'm helping grow muscle and I can still apply the principles. And so can I actually necessarily sit in empathy as deep as I can with someone trying to lose weight? I actually can. But at the same time, I think with that notion, I can't sit into the depth of knowing exactly what you went through to know that you lost 60 pounds. I don't know that massive transformation like you were talking about. Like I might have lost 10 to 20 pounds over the course of many years. It was more of a recomposition than anything. It's very gradual, wasn't drastic. So can I absolutely relate with every client that's losing 50 pounds? Nope. But I wonder too, maybe this is just the bias I want to believe I have, especially now with the GLP ones coming out, is that I do think that we're seeing that there might be something to food noise, which is a hot word. It's kind of, maybe it's going to be overutilized, just like anything else does and gets used in the fitness industry. But I wonder if there's something to it, because I definitely believe I have it. On a spectrum, I think everyone would be on a spectrum. Some people don't have it at all. They don't worry about it. Some people have a ton, and that's why they're probably morbidly obese. But I think that's the part that I still feel like I can resonate with a lot of people, because if I wasn't a personal trainer, if I didn't go down this path, I'd be overweight. I'd be overweight at least, maybe obese. I believe so. But at the same time, it's also hard to imagine myself in a different light, right? Because what person would I be if I wasn't trying to go after the goals I am, if I wasn't the same ambitious person? That was all relative to me getting into fitness in general. So it's like imagining an alternative reality that doesn't make sense to me, because so much of my identity is wrapped up in training and nutrition. So it's like almost an impossible question for me. But I do theorize with my genetics, because my dad's overweight, like it runs in my family, to have a hard time with weight. If I chose a different path, I think it would be harder for me. And honestly, I think it's been like a good pressure to have to stay in shape. And there's even been times when I haven't done it. So that's where it always leads me to think like, man, if I was just, a teacher or, a construction worker and I didn't have to be in shape, fuck, this would be hard. It'd be really hard to go want to prep all this food. It'd be really hard to care about doing this stuff. And so that's the part where I feel I can empathize a lot, because it's even hard for me. Like it's still to this day, I have to understand my appetite. I still track calories if I want to be in a deficit and keep myself reined in. So I think that's the part that I settle into. And again, coming back from, I still help people build muscle. And the only thing I can tell them, I don't know what it's like to have the frustration. I don't know what it's like to have to show up and to feel the insecurity of being the small guy in the gym. I don't. And so that's something I can't help them with. I can help the insight when it comes to the emotional regulation of food. That is something I have. So this is my appetite hack for this. This is how I thought my way out of this. So I think when it comes to psychology and coaching individuals on that side, based on experience, I think I have better insight. But when it comes to the practical knowledge of just what you need to actually do, there's not going to be much difference. And that's why I can still help people build muscle. I just can't always resonate with their internal struggles as much. Is that fair?
Yeah, totally. And I don't think you always need to resonate. Like I said, I think it gives you a helpful perspective if you have had those same struggles, but I don't think it's necessary, because just like anything, just like working out a muscle in the gym, the more people that you work with, the more you work that muscle and just hear and get accustomed to the struggles that people are facing, the more equipped, the better able you're going to be to help these people, right? So it might be different, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you never had any clients that were interested in weight loss or building muscle, like you just wouldn't have that practical experience. But like you said, and why I think we're going to get along just great is because I also have food noise. And even if I didn't have the experience of being overweight and having all of those, negative emotional feelings, I would still be able to relate to, empathize with, and ideally, hopefully help those people work through all of that stuff that they're experiencing as well. So I'm totally there with you.
Yeah, I think I love that you're saying that you don't have to, not for every client, but it does help you give some good insight. I'd be curious from that big transformation, like you had a lot of little key points there. You got to have some insight for exactly what we're talking about. What do you think your journey has taught you that you wish more people knew about for their own journey?
Just want to sit with that for a second. But it does get easier. And for me, what's been sitting with me a lot lately is just the reframing of it all. I think it's helpful if I give the preface of and why I think it took me far longer than it potentially should have to get to where I am now is that when I first entered into fitness, I was all about body composition. Everything regarding my confidence and my self-efficacy had to do with the reflection that I saw in the mirror. If I thought I looked a certain way or didn't look a certain way, especially in regards to all of these literally competitive level bodybuilders that I was following and idolizing, I was just going to have a bad day or a bad week or a bad month. Like everything regarding my self-image was wrapped up in what I looked like. And it was like that for the entirety of high school. And, 14 years old is such a sensitive age to have to go through such a transformation because your body is still developing. You're still figuring out who the hell you are. So in tandem with me just being an insecure high schooler and a freshman in high school, like many freshmen are in high school, insecure and trying to find themselves, I was also just so dissatisfied and confused with the person that I was looking at in the mirror. And so everything that I was worried about had to do with my body image. And I say that because what's been resonating with me lately is just the reframing. And I'm up to a certain point before I went to school, before I started getting a ton of expertise and mentorship at the gyms that I've worked at in years since, was just so self-taught. And basically the only information I was taking in, that's all that I knew. All of these Instagram influencers, all of these bodybuilders, again, it was all related to body image. And if I had had someone sit me down and just try to shift my perspective about what it means to be healthy, what it means to be fit, what actually matters in the world of fitness, I think I would have gotten a lot further a lot sooner. And I'm glad that I went through what I did because I am who I am today because of what I've went through, right? But at the same time, I just, all throughout high school, I still just resonate so deeply and have so much sympathy for what I had to go through. And I'm not having a pity party because I'm in a great position now and I'm happy with myself and my physique, and I've never been more comfortable with the way that I look and feel. But it's just that reframe of like, exercise makes you feel good. It's amazing to know how strong and capable you can be. It's not just about what you see in the mirror. It's about what you can do, how you feel, the ways in which you show up for and take care of yourself. So I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons learned, is just that reframing of there's far more to all of this and to what exercise and fitness as a whole can do for you other than just how you look. Sure, I'm worried about and care about how I look. I would be, inhuman to say that I don't. I mean, that's just, like you said, like some people may not have food noise. I don't know if anyone truly looks in the mirror and doesn't really feel one way or another about how they look. So for me, that is very much still a real thing, but I've learned to find a lot of just comfort and ease. And maybe I don't have six-pack abs. Maybe I'm not the biggest, strongest, most jacked dude in the gym, but I'm happy with the body I've built. And I'm happy with the ways that I show up for myself in training because I've learned to look at it as something that I enjoy and something that makes me feel good, other than just I'm always chasing this next thing and having to push myself further and eat the foods because they're going to make me look a certain way. You know what I mean?
Totally. Creating a better value outside of just intrinsically believing that you have to look a certain way, especially at a young age. You have a really important point there. The way you described it, it seemed like, not that you feel bad for yourself, but the way I was understanding the way you said that is you'd feel bad if another kid had to go through that. That's the way I looked at you saying that, because you're like grateful that you've been through it. It's a perseverance you had to, but like imagining other people going through that, it sucks. And man, body dysmorphia, it's just like, I think we all have it on a spectrum. And now for people to get clarity, we joke more so about the spectrum of body dysmorphia because like if you're going to go in the DSM, like the actual diagnostic manual, it's like someone saying you're OCD. It's like, no, OCD people think that if they don't turn off their lights on and off 5 times, someone's going to die. Like OCD literally creates massive problems in their life. When you go to say that you have a disorder, just understand that the DSM requires it to completely interrupt your life to a very negative detriment. So I I still think that body dysmorphia can be in a spectrum where it could be close to that, even in the fitness industry, like a lot in the fitness industry. But it's almost like this like blanket thing that it's like hard to make peace with somewhere in between, right? So we get so caught up, it's like, man, I got to be in shape. I'm just not fit enough, because you're looking at these fitness models. You're aspiring to be them. Like that is what inspired me. It was like all the stories of the heroes, watching the superheroes. I wanted to be jacked and I wanted to be a superhero. That was always my thing. And then as you get older, you just keep watching it. Like took me years to realize that The Rock was on steroids. And so it's just like you start to realize how like it takes you until you're like an adult to realize how unattainable some of these things are, or just how rare the genetics are for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then even as a trainer, being fit, it's like even working hard, it's like I'm not fit enough. I'm not fit enough. And then at the same time, on it's okay, like this is body dysmorphia, but it's like you also don't want to be complacent. And so we now need to dance with this in between, as you just mentioned. Like, I mean, we still should look in the mirror and worry about what we look like.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the interesting battleground that I think both of us and everyone needs to exist on. I don't think it's wrong to want to improve your aesthetics. It's almost become, this is the dangerous thing, is that it's become a thing where thinking about aesthetics, people are afraid to say it. People are afraid to say, oh, like, I mean, I guess I kind of look good with my shirt off, because then they say health matters, and it should. Health should be the biggest priority. But then they don't know what that looks like, right? They don't know what they physically looks like. And so I really just try to get people to frame it up similar to what you kind of described. It's just like, your goal is to be comfortable in your skin and to be proud of what you said. I'm proud of the body I built. If you can just say that, you're doing pretty fucking good. And there's also a great sentiment I had from this sports psychologist: always gratified, never satisfied. It doesn't mean that you're discontent. It doesn't mean you don't appreciate what you have. And I think there's a big difference when someone has body dysmorphia, when someone's going after unattainable goals, comparing themselves to these. I've had clients like, hey, I really want this person's fitness. I was like, do you know like how many calories they eat all the time? Saying that. Do you know that they not only do they probably they do have the genetics for it, but like, do you know how much socializing they do? Probably none. Like, probably none. Mm-hmm. And so we have that end of the spectrum, but at the same time, we don't want to end up complacent, right? And we want to be proud of what we're doing. How do you feel you navigate this now? Because I think it's a very challenging thing. I even contend with it. Am I big enough? Am I lean enough? It's a constant question, especially as an online trainer. We feel easily required to compare ourselves to others. It's literally our business, right? Front story of your business. So how do you contend with that spectrum?
I mean, I think we would be naive trainers to turn to our clients and tell them that, oh, just don't worry so much about how you look. That's just so unrealistic. And again, both of us are speaking to the fact right now that while it's not everything, we still care about how we look. Like, I still care about being at least visibly somewhat muscly, for lack of a better way of putting it. So I think you bring up a great conversation topic. I mean, it's such a slippery slope. And I'm thinking back to what I said about reframing it, because you cannot discredit or think someone is crazy for wanting to change how they look. I mean, that is just human nature to want to feel better in our skin, look better in the mirror, all of this sort of stuff. But I think it comes down to both hearing your clients, making them feel seen, understanding the internal struggles that they may be going through, while trying your best with the power you have within you from your personal experiences, from your education as a coach, to try to get them bought into the process for reasons other than how they look. Because it is so easy to get caught up in that stuff, especially in this age of social media and what everyone is posting on Instagram. I mean, I think I've finally reworked my algorithm enough to the point where I'm not just seeing exceptionally jacked people doing all of this crazy shit on Instagram anymore. And now it's much more geared towards the type of content that I try to create, which is like beginner empowerment, simplifying strength training, all this sort of stuff, mindset. But yeah, I think you have to just try to see and hear your clients, take in, their emotional state and where they may be at in this process. Like the theoretical model of behavior change. Like someone might be aware that they need to make a change, but they're not willing to put in the work yet, or they might be 2 or 3 months into the process and they're actively trying to make something of this and they're picking up the habit of exercise. But it just comes down to meeting them where they're at, seeing them for where they are, trying to see them where they could be if they have the right tools, the right guidance, and just trying to figure out how to bridge that gap. The reframing, but the also hearing them and trying to help them with what they're currently dealing with and trying to reframe it in such a way.
Well stated. Just the way that you said that, of like the reframe of it's not just the one value, and ensuring that one thing that we need to do as coaches is to make sure that they have more intrinsic motivation. Essentially, the way you look is an extrinsic motivator. It's from the outside. It's a judgment looking in. And if it's the only motivator, it can wear down. It can wear very thin. And intrinsic motivation is very simple. It's the reason why you're doing it. It's why someone goes to play hockey. They want to go play hockey. They want to play basketball. You want to do the thing for the thing. And so if you can create that appreciation for the inherent value of getting fitter and it gets you in shape, now you're going to want to live that life sustainably, right? That's the whole goal, is like to end up there. Very well stated. And so you really said something valuable there. And I think we can change gears into this, because you said you really like to work your content. Oh yeah, I want to mention this about content. I used to have this issue with my content where I had more jacked guys on my Explore feed than girls or anything else. And I was like, what content am I watching? Like this is definitely getting old. It doesn't anymore nearly as much. Now it's actually just high protein food or really delicious food. That's mostly my Explore feed. But you had spoke to how you enjoy speaking to a lot of newbies. And so is that more the clientele that you feel that you really speak to a lot?
Yeah, it's the people that, just circling back to how I started this whole conversation about where I come from, I think it's the people that I can like resonate with the most, because while I might be able to do certain things and maybe I look a certain way to people, whether it be both physically or just like, the way that I coach and present myself, I still see that exact person within me. And so I think I would be doing a disservice if I wasn't trying to speak directly to that clientele, because again, it's just all the stuff I said. Like, I know what it's like, I know how they feel, and I know how to meet them where they're at. I mean, I even started working with a gentleman recently who, I have to give so much credit, by the way, to the gym that I work at in Boulder, Colorado. It's Uplift Boulder. When I started working there in the summer of 2023, I was very, very fresh coach. And we can even potentially talk about just getting into coaching and how uncomfortable that was at first, the imposter syndrome and the anxiety that came with standing in front of a room of people and telling them what to do at 23 years old, being the youngest person in the gym. But I have to give so much credit to my gym, because our group classes are just made for anyone. I mean, you can have the most beginner exerciser in class with someone that's squatting 3 plates on the bar. And we have this onboarding process that's super rigorous, and just they've taught me so much about how to help anyone regardless of where they may be at in their fitness journey. And recently I started working with this gentleman who had like literally never touched a weight in his life. Like, you hear beginners and they've dabbled with exercise, they've tried different programs. He had a stint of rock climbing for a while, but truly had never done any form of weightlifting. And I have to give this guy so much freaking credit, because he was so gung-ho about just jumping right into group classes, and they move pretty fast. And what we focus on is barbell strength training and a lot of just foundational movement patterns. We don't have any machines or anything at my gym. And it very quickly became apparent to me in his onboarding session that I would be doing you a complete disservice if I were to let you just jump right into classes. And I just remember within that first hour of working with this gentleman, just seeing myself, just like the fear and the lack of understanding about how to truly do this stuff. And sure, he could have gone into classes and it wouldn't have been terribly unsafe or a disaster or anything, because the coaching that we have at the gym is really, really diligent. But I just saw myself within him, and I asked him if he'd be willing to do personal training for a while so that I could really try to help teach him the basics. And he was just ecstatic about it and was so grateful that, I was willing to put in the time and energy. But what I'm getting at is that I just feel like in a real way, I'm able to resonate with and especially help beginners. Because don't get me wrong, I love working with people that are all about exercise, that have experience, because I could geek out on anatomy and exercise selection and like the nitty gritty technique aspects and cueing of certain exercises. But when it comes to just framing all of this for people in a way that helps show them what it can do for them and how it can make them feel better in their body, and just knowing how to be aware of how their body moves in space, I mean, it is probably some of the most gratifying people that I have worked with are those that just are a clean slate and they don't have any background on this. And again, it goes back to just my almost having to do all of this unlearning relative to when I first started. I just had all of this information about, oh, bodybuilders, like I have to be as jacked as possible. I have to look a certain way. I had to unlearn all of that. So if I can try to, kind of shove all the right information into someone's brain and body in such a way, I just feel so much, I don't know, fulfillment and purpose that comes with all of that. So with my content, I definitely try to gear it more towards beginner exercisers, people that have never really done this stuff, because it's a really tricky landscape to navigate. I mean, it's gotten so much better, like so much better. I mean, there's always going to be misinformation regardless of the industry or the business or whatever, but it's still hard to know how the hell to get into this stuff, how to do the right things, how much to do, when to do it, what to do. It's hard. So that's the people that I try to speak to, is the beginner who doesn't really know where to start. If I can make things even a little bit less confusing, then I mean, that's a win in my book, regardless of whether or not they want to or end up working with me in the end.
I really love how you pointed to like right away the value of, you've had that experience, you know what it's like, and it's scary. I've made content around this before. I think the most courageous people are the people who look very out of shape and don't look like they know what they're doing. Like it takes so little will for a jacked guy to go to the gym. It takes so little will. And honestly, people would say, they don't use discipline. I was like, or no, sorry, they use discipline to show up every day. I was like, no, they don't. Not anymore. They're fucking obsessed with it. Like their discipline, like tank, is like already fine. Like they don't need discipline. They need discipline to not train, right? I need discipline to not train some days. The person who is obese, overweight, rarely goes to the gym, really confused about what equipment to use, and is easily out of breath, but they're in the gym. Most courageous people, that took the most will. And I think they need more credit for that. They need to give themselves more credit for that, is that they just need to be courageous at the start. And you had said this earlier in the podcast. I think they need to sit with it. It gets better. Like it just gets, because this is the thing that I think it needs to be kind of stated more clear for people, that there is a phase in fitness that will require more discipline over motivation. It's not that that's not a true statement. I don't like it when they tell the people that you always live like that. So what they'll say is like, I use discipline to show up here. I use discipline. It's like, you don't anymore. You did in the first year of your fitness journey at some point, and you will some points in the future. I'm not saying I won't have discipline days, but that discipline muscle is fucking fresh. Like it's easy. Yeah. It'd be so different if I didn't have confidence, if I didn't see good weights on the bar, if I didn't see progress. Then I need way more fucking discipline at the start. And so at the start, you have so much uncertainty, so little confidence. You need so much more, and you do need discipline at the start. But I wish we would tell more people, you don't need it forever. You just need to get momentum. You just need proof that this whole concept works. And then finding the intrinsic motivation that we had talked about. I think that's really helpful for people to appreciate, and to get coach like yourself who really cares about that process. Because especially when you have group classes, like how many people can just get fucking shell shocked by like, yeah, this is the workout of the day. And then they're not working out forever, right? And what's really cool though, is if you do it properly, you have this blank slate. My friend who was a golf coach said that. So it's really, I see it in boxing. When you haven't had someone come from another teacher that's maybe taught them something incorrectly, or how you wouldn't teach it, they're a blank slate. You can form them. Like you can create all the good habits and make them feel good about it. But then, when you finally get them into, you start body weight, get them into a little bit of weight. It's like, I had this one girl come to me who started with nothing but body weight. Eventually she's doing dumbbell squats like 10 pounds, 5 pounds, 20 pounds. A year, maybe it was 2 years later, I had her she left, she went to France, came back where she's from. She came back, she was so obsessed with powerlifting. She came to me to help her running. And then she's back squatting a plate aside, like 135.
Let's go.
And she fucking loves lifting. Like,
that's awesome.
Because the coolest thing was within the first month, you see it's probably one of the best ways to see success when you're a noob is to start tracking your numbers. Because if you start seeing that, you'll be like, whoa, you can easily, and I'm not saying easy like it's an easy physical experience, but I'm just like, you will definitely see numbers go up very fast with the first 2 months. Like it's just scientifically proven time and time again, because it's all neurological. Your brain just has to be more efficient. You're not even building muscle in that process. But I love that. Now, let's get into, because you talked about like explaining details. And this is one of the topics that you have mentioned that you're interested in, because I do think this is interesting. The why behind exercise and exercise selection as opposed to having them do the damn thing. Now, I want you to say your idea behind this, because I think I might have a little pushback for you, but tell me how you feel about this idea, the why, and telling clients why.
Just like you're speaking to just like why it is I think this stuff is so important in the first place. Yep. I mean, I think there's a lot of merit and value in just doing the damn thing. And something that I've preached before is that it doesn't matter what it is at first. It could be rock climbing, it could be yoga, it could be jujitsu, it could be powerlifting, it could be body weight training, calisthenics, what have you. Whatever it is that gets you moving and gets you feeling what it's like to break a sweat, to work hard, to get sore. I think there's a lot of power and a lot of value in just showcasing to yourself, just like tracking your workouts and seeing the numbers go up. Like you're giving yourself evidence, you're giving yourself data that not only can I, but I am. Like you're doing the damn thing. But in regards to the why behind all of this stuff, it just doesn't sit right with me to put someone through a workout without trying to help them understand why it is that we're doing this type of stuff. So just as an example, I mean, with the majority of clients that I work with, it's once, maybe twice a week. I get them for an hour a day. I don't know how many hours there are in a week, but I have 2 hours with these people over the course of the entire week. Don't get me wrong. A lot of them do want to just show up and feel like they worked really hard and then go about their day. But even for the people that aren't ever going to be all about exercise or think it is super, super interesting, it just doesn't sit right with me to just have them do a bunch of stuff without having them at least try to understand what it is we're doing. So if I'm doing a full body workout with someone, I'm trying to hit all the major movement patterns, right? You're doing your traditional, you're doing a push-up, you're doing a pull-up variation or a pull-down, you're doing some type of unilateral variation like a lunge, you're trying to teach them how to hip hinge correctly, and then you have to strengthen your core. I could just have them do all that and they'd get a kick-ass workout. They'd be covering all of their bases, they'd be hitting all of their major muscle groups, all would be well. But if they know why it's important to be able to strengthen your pushing muscles, why you have to know how to keep your shoulder stable overhead, why it's important to think about the intricacies in regards to how they're moving, how they're getting up and down off the floor, how they're stabilizing their midsection, I think they're just going to feel more bought into the process. Because again, I just want to keep reiterating that it feels good to get a workout. A lot of people, that's why they gravitate towards your fast fitness type of group classes and whatnot. I've never taken F45, but I think that's an example of that. It's very structured and deliberate in how they do things, but I don't know that they're teaching you the fundamentals of exercise. So I really think it just boils down to appreciating and being bought into the process. If someone knows why they're doing something, why they need to have a strong core, why it's important to keep your weight over the forward leg when you're doing something like a lunge, they're not only going to move better, they're not only going to feel better, but they're just going to feel like, oh, there's a purpose behind this. Like there's a reason. It's not just fitness for fitness sake. It's like, I'm doing this so that I can just move better in my day-to-day life, so I can get up and down off the ground with my grandkids in the future, so I can continue to do the activities I like outside of the gym. It doesn't always have a direct translation over to that stuff, but it just makes it more fun, honestly.
I really agree, but
I'm curious to hear your pushback.
yeah, but not everyone agrees. So the reason I say this is from my experience. Now, I am just like you, and like I find this shit fucking fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first got into training and I got into online training, I was making like this nutrition exercise mindset series, and I made an educational series for my clients. And I went fucking balls to the wall. I made a 3-month fucking online course, basically, that when they signed up, they had 3 20-minute videos a week. One was exercise, one was nutrition, one was exercise, one was mindset. And I went all out. Like, it was pretty well done, bunch of PowerPoint presentations. And sometimes they're even longer, 30, 40 minutes, because there was like details. Because I'm so interested. I was like, why wouldn't they find it interesting? And it was the same process, right? And then not everyone watched them. Some people did. And I'm not going to lie, those who did got some of the best success. But not everyone had time for it. Not everyone even cared. And it didn't matter if it was actually going to help them get success. There wasn't enough curiosity, and some people did just want to do the damn thing. One thing I really find interesting is I've noticed with people who are like fat loss clients, and they need to learn, right? So, because you're going to teach them how to choose their own food. So I still have a nutrition exercise mindset series, but it's abbreviated. It's like not even half the content. And I'd say, and then I say, do you want to watch it? Because you don't have to. Because I've had athletes where I'm like, hey, do you want to watch this? They're like, no. Okay, do the damn thing.
Can't argue with that. Yeah.
Right? Because like, if you just want me to tell you what to do, I'll tell you exactly what to do. And sometimes you had some good descriptions there where you were describing cues. You were describing why to do something so the movement's better, why to brace your core so the shoulder's better, why to put your weight, like cues for sure, especially when you're doing more in person. Like that's vital. And then I've just found there should be like a baseline of concern for people when it comes to what they want to get out of it, right? And when it comes to nutrition, they want to be on their own successful after anyways. So I always frame it like, you don't have to do this, but it's going to give you the tools that you want after anyways. And you're going to understand why we're doing what we're doing. And I pack in a little bit of exercise, a little bit of mindset tips, and they like it for those who watch it, and they don't have to. But I do think that it's a spectrum, because some people will be super interested in the training. Some people won't. This was actually a really good sentiment from Jordan Sayat in one of his recent podcasts. He had this, I can't remember what her name was, but I think she was like a heart surgeon or something like that. But she basically, she even gave him credit for his sentiment, which was basically just do it. Like, it's okay, you don't like it. Yeah. And it took me a while to actually appreciate, to tell people that sometimes, that not everyone is going to find training interesting. Not everyone is going to find what I find interesting. And the only thing is, we kind of need to do it. You don't have to do it 5 days a week, at least once.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do a ton of cardio, but if you know you're over the age of 40, probably need to do some for heart health. And so outside of that, we can be very flexible in what you want to be interested in. So I suppose it's like, in my experience, you got to find out who wants to know the why, and it probably will naturally come out. You know, I think that's what I've discovered, is like, it just naturally comes out. You probably just have these moments where someone will say why, and then you're fucking pumped to tell them.
Yeah.
The thing that I started to realize I don't need to is, I don't need to tell you exactly why, unless it's going to enhance the probability for sure that you're going to do the thing, right? In nutrition. Like, I got to tell you why you're having more protein. Because if you're not really understanding why you need more protein or more fiber, you might not go do that thing. Do you need to know that the amino acids are doing this really cool thing where if you have it throughout the day, it's going to build muscle and all these other things? You need to know that it's leucine and that's going to be the real muscle building. It's like, probably not, unless you're vegan. I'll just say that there's certain amino acids. I'll simplify it as much as I can.
Right.
But if I can say less, I found it helps them more until they ask more questions. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And that's very well said. And that's not to say that, I'm just trying to like preach to every single person that I'm working with either, because I think I'm in a unique position. One, in that I'm mostly in person at this moment, and two, that I've only been coaching for like three and a half years, and that most of my client base has been very consistent clients for a period of time. I mean, just as you were saying all of that, 2 to 3 people popped to mind about, I know that they're just there for the workout, and I know they're committed to doing the thing, but that they don't care all that much about what I have them do. I'll still try to like intersperse it and be like, just a quick like 10-15 second synopsis, like, I'm having you do this thing because of X, Y, and Z. But it's certainly, it's just about knowing who's standing in front of you or who's on the other side of the screen and what they most need to hear to keep them motivated and moving along. But you're absolutely right in that not everyone is going to want to geek out about this stuff like you and I are. But if they're willing and able to and have the means to do this stuff in the first place, and they're just there for the workout and they're not really interested in all the nitty gritty details and the why, then that's okay. It just goes back to meeting them where they're at, right?
Yeah, and then I would say, maybe biasly, just my assumption is you're going to have to be the person that has to do the thing you don't want to do, because it might end up being that you're less intrinsically motivated. I'm not certain about that, but the people who find interest in this stuff are motivated to train. That's why they want to know more. And so if you don't want to know more because you got a lot of things to worry about in your job, in your life, it's like, don't teach me more. It's like, okay, but just know you got to show up anyways, and you're not going to want to do it. I just had a thought of a client. Again, it was just one of those people where even to like write their own workout, I thought would be interesting. And she was it was the holidays. I'm like, yeah, so here, you could just do something like this, something like this, something like this. She's like, just tell me what to do. It's like, no, it's like, you just try to make it your own for once. Like, try that out. That'd be fun. No, tell me what to do. And it was just, to me, it was such a learning moment for me to appreciate that, like, she doesn't have that mental capacity or interest. And so everyone's a bit different on that, but I totally value that. Like, we value it, and we know the clients that value it. And I think I am very biased in the fact that I think that you will understand and appreciate it better if you're interested in it. But some people just don't have that time in the day. So you got to meet them where they're at.
To be. Totally. I have one client, just really quickly, that will literally, like, very early on, just the type of person that's not afraid to say what's on their mind, told me outright, don't ever ask me what I want to work on. Like, I pay you to tell me what to work on. And I'm like, fair enough. Yeah, I can't argue with that. I mean, that was a great learning experience for me too. Like, I always want to gauge what my clients are interested in, or if there's any exercises that they particularly enjoy, or if there's any movement that they'd really just feel empowered by getting better at. But I'm not going to, try to force exercises out of you if you want me to just give you a good workout. Like, at the end of the day, that is our job.
Totally. Take the thinking out of it. Be the filter. Now, you had mentioned on another topic, mobility specific training. I love this because I think, it's fucking critical, right? Like, I mean, I think this is almost going to be its own kind of pursuit of fitness. You got people who like cardio, people who love high intensity training, people who have strength training, powerlifting. Like, mobility training is its own. And I also don't think people appreciate what mobility training really is. But why don't you go deeper on that topic that you wanted to discuss?
Oh man, what a rabbit hole. Where to start? I guess the first thing, I'll just give like 2 very big claims, I suppose, that I think are very important for people to understand and like reframe. The first one being, mobility training is strength training. If you approach it the correct way, in the way that's going to not only help you get the most out of it, but see the most progress, it should be approached much like strength training, both in regards to your exercise selection, in regards to, the way that you gauge intensity, and the way that you progress movements over a given training cycle. The other one being that mobility is inherently different from flexibility. I look at mobility, and I think this might actually be like the technical definition of it, as it is your ability to move actively into a range of motion. So you can think of a very, very deep squat, be that with a dumbbell in front of the chest or a barbell on your back, as an active mobility exercises, because you are expressing your deepest range of motion using the musculature and the strength you have available to you. Flexibility is just the length of your tissues or your muscles. So if you were to think about, your classic like doorway hamstring stretch, like your joint is moving in one specific direction. All that is doing is testing the flexibility of the back of your leg. And obviously the front of your hip is involved because those muscles on the inverse side of the joint have to pull you into that position. Can you tell how I'm like geeking out about this?
Yeah, I love it. It's good.
But yeah, flexibility is just like the passive length of your muscles, whereas mobility is like the active control you have of your muscles within certain expressions or ranges of motion. Why I think mobility is so important to be framed as strength training is because the way that I've learned it, both from a dear friend of mine who helped me get going with the mobility program that I now kind of head at the gym that I work at in tandem with my coach, Range of Strength, who, if you don't follow him on Instagram,
oh yeah,
super badass. He can squat like 405, but can also do like a full middle splits. He's insane. You have to teach your nervous system and teach your body that it's safe and protected in these positions. If all you ever did was hold static stretches like a couch stretch or a hamstring stretch, where you were just really focused on the stretch sensation, the tension that you're experiencing in that stretch position, it would feel good. Don't get me wrong, but you're not going to make any lasting goals because you're never building strength within that range of motion. So whether it be contracting within a given stretch, performing isometric contractions, isometrics being contractions in which no movement is taking place, but you're just contracting against the stretch happening, or you're doing more isolated dynamic movements. Like I'm sure a lot of people that listen to your podcast are familiar with ATG, knees over toes guy, Ben Patrick. Like he really kind of helped bring a lot of these mobility principles into the mainstream a couple of years ago with his big, long split squat, or that long lunge, the ATG lunge, where his knee is just way over his toe and his back leg is way behind him. Like you are getting into a stretch position dynamically. It's a strength exercise because you're controlling your way into it, pausing and then coming out of it. But the sensation you're getting is a stretch sensation. I think if you were to think about like a traditional weighted hip hinge or a Romanian deadlift or a stiff leg deadlift, in theory, that is a strength exercise, but it could very well be approached as a mobility exercise too, if you just kind of change the intent and the scope in which you're approaching such a movement. Because the act of coming into that deep hip hinged position, you're putting your hamstrings under this huge stretch, right? A lot of people do it for the sake of strength, overloading the movement, so on and so forth. But if you slow it down, really focus on keeping your knees straight, pausing at the bottom, using light weight so that you can tolerate your deepest possible position, then that's how you're going to see strength gains in these really deep ranges of motion over time. I mean, I've seen so many people that have gotten more mobile, more flexible from approaching their stretching as strength training than just doing your traditional classic 5-minute cool down at the end of a strength training session. Because again, it might feel good, but it's not going to do a whole lot for you. So when it comes to my training, just the things that I think about, I love just getting all in on the weeds of the specific exercise selection and how a structured session, how you progress a given exercise or training session rather, is going to help you just build upon all of the mobility work that you're trying to prioritize in your training.
It's super well said that mobility training is strength training, and people need to appreciate that strength is actually the key to healthier joints. I have it time and time again when people do some of my programs, like, are we going to stretch? You can stretch if you want. It's not going to do much because, you do that 5-minute cool down stretch. It really doesn't do much of anything at the end of a workout after all the stimulus is done. You haven't given that muscle any education. You've cooled it down. And really just because you stop moving. And what you get is a temporary sensation of relaxation because you put it into a stretch, which give it tension. Then you relaxed it, you let go of it. And the counter receptor has to be like, okay, let's take a breather. So it feels good. But that's about it. And so it's funny because when people see me as a strength coach, like, why don't we stretch? He doesn't stretch here. Yeah, we don't do stretching. I'm just like, go ahead and stretch. It's not going to do much for you unless you're going to load that stretch. Might as well be strength training. I have the same policy and principles, but it's also like a rabbit hole I want to get down to understand more of those the ways to do it, because there's so many ways to do it, and there's ways to do it safely, there's ways to do it kind of not safely. And so there's a rabbit hole I definitely want to venture down. I've dabbled into some visual functional range conditioning stuff. I've worked on some programs like that. I plan on actually signing up with Range of Strength as a coach. I want to try some of those programs.
Nice.
I'm curious from your perspective how people should think about this, even for myself. Like, I'm trying to think about this as someone who wants to power lift. I want to be strong, but I've also been concerned of just moderately concerned, not massively, but like maybe being too elastic within a training session. Does that mean that I should do mobility separate, like a mobility session separate, strength training another day? Or does that mean I do that mobility training after my power lifts where you want some tightness? How do you recommend someone look at balancing out mobility training with strength training?
Great question. I mean, if we were to use you as an example, right, as a power lifter, like, you certainly wouldn't want to compromise your ability to build stiffness and rigidity by doing a bunch of these mobility drills first. Now, if you are competing in powerlifting and you have to adhere to a hip below knee crease squat to be able to have your lift count during a competition, and you cannot get into that position cold, then you'll probably need to do some type of mobility drill leading into your session to get you accustomed to that range of motion. So that's not the most specific possible way that I'm kind of thinking about or talking about, but mobility can play a role in your warming up if you need to get into certain positions, whether it be for your purposes to be able to move into the range of motion necessary to complete the lifts in the way that is, just required for your competitive standards, or if you're just need to move a little bit better before your session. Warming up is a whole nother topic, but I digress. What I've been playing around with lately that's proven productive and is helping me at the very least hold on to a lot of the mobility that I've gained since doing mobility exclusive training for pretty much a year and a half. I just totally set aside strength training and just gave all of myself to mobility so I could just really go down the rabbit hole of it. Is I'm now just trying to, kind of like I spoke to about the hip hinge before, reframing how I'm thinking about my mobility. I think that you can get a lot out of mobility training by doing a dedicated session for it. Like, even today, I had a front split session where the entire session was focused around helping me open up my hip flexors, my quads, my hamstrings, both through static stretching, contract, relax means, as well as these big dynamic patterns that are just helping my body progressively relax deeper and deeper into this big kind of like feat of range of motion. But for an upper body day, for example, I mean, there's just some very traditional strength training exercises that you could just change the intent for to help you get more of a mobility stimulus out of it. So just something that comes to mind immediately is a deficit push-up, trusting that you can keep stable shoulders and you know how to kind of keep your rotator cuff engaged. You could elevate your hands on plates or yoga blocks, and rather than focusing on how many push-ups can I do or how much weight can I add to my back for a set of 6 to 8 reps, just really slow descent, really bringing your chest through these hand elevations you have, pausing at the bottom, getting a deep stretch of your pecs, and then coming out of it. If we were to think of something lower body related, if you had really, really stiff quads, for example, you could do a traditional lunge or a split squat, but you could have your foot elevated on a plate, or you could pause at the bottom, or you could try to shift more of your weight into the back leg to prioritize a stretch of the rear leg quad or hip flexor, as opposed to just trying to overload what's often the working leg, which is the forward leg. So there's a lot of just kind of subtle shifts you can make to your traditional everyday basic strength training that can help you get a little bit more out of it without having to think of this crazy new type of training that you're doing. And I mean, there is a lot of shit that I wouldn't have known about had I not done coaching with Range of Strength, which I highly recommend you do because he is another wealth of knowledge, much like some of the other people we talked about. But just so much of what I preach is just like, it doesn't have to be that complicated. So if I'm only seeing someone for an hour and they have some pretty glaring mobility considerations, but like you probably believe too, like strength training is the meat and potatoes of what we have to get done. I'm not going to stretch this person out for an hour. Let me just pick an exercise or two that's going to give them the strength stimulus that they need, while also helping them get a little bit of mobility work, even if it's not the most specific possible thing that they can do. So hopefully that answers the question. It's just a reframing. It's just a changing the emphasis of the exercise. And that's where working with the coach can be so helpful. Just making sense of how to shift that emphasis, what you need to feel instead of what you're used to feeling with a given exercise, and things like that.
I totally agree. And I think some exercises are just going to be better at utilizing the range of motion safely than others. And so you have a client, whether it's myself or someone who's like, I'm trying to get, heavy back squat. We don't need to go lower than parallel. Like, we just don't need to. Astergrass is not beneficial for that goal, right? So we're going to use that as your main strength. And then when you go to do a single leg movement after, if we're going to put like a Bulgarian split squat, you get fucking low, get as low as you can, put that knee forward. You can get deep into it. Let's try to lower the weight. And as you mentioned, reframe what we're thinking. Like, this is about strength, but it's about range of motion strength on this one. Yeah. And, one of the best things my powerlifting coach did for me, I can't believe how much better my shoulder feels. My shoulder, I've had bad shoulders since boxing, so most of my life. It started my left, and that one's even been subluxed. Like, it's been partially separated, and my right one eventually needed surgery. And so I eventually needed a surgery from just a fucked up labrum. And it just, after the surgery, I never went back 100%. It would be okay, it'd be better, it'd be worse, better, worse. And then I just kind of tolerated it. And I was going after powerlifting, and my powerlifting coach, he had told me before I even signed up with him, I had interviewed him, and he mentioned this idea of just a very light dumbbell fly. I'm like, all right. I tried it a bit, didn't really give it enough time. Then we put it directly in the program, and I signed up with him. And literally progressively overloading it, but really light weights, slow eccentrics, all the way down to the ground, like fucking stretching it where it's like, whoa. And you don't even feel it at the top. You feel it all in the mid range. And my fucking shoulder has not felt that good since I was early 20s, like since pre-boxing, like pre any issues. And it's like, hey, range of motion strength, right? Like, it's like, that's the stuff that matters. It is a stretch, and it's loaded, and it's progressively overloaded. And it was a part of my strength programming. It wasn't before the bench press. It was after the bench press. So it was an accessory movement. And that's a way to start to explore some of the mobility movements. So I think that's great. I think the way you kind of frame that up, I love how you're nerding out about this. So I definitely got to have you on in the future so we can dive deeper on this whole topic of mobility, because I'm going to be going through range of motions program, and then we're going to be able to really nerd out and give some people some tangible feedback. But one last question for you. Yeah. What is your most recent ambition? What are you really excited coming down the pipeline? It could be work, life, anything.
The first thing that's completely unrelated to anything fitness is 3 days ago, my girlfriend and I just got a puppy. Very exciting. So we're going down the rabbit hole. It's an Alaskan Husky mix.
Oh, beautiful.
It's a cute freaking dog. You should see the ears on this thing. But we're excited about going down the rabbit hole of just trying to be really good dog owners. I mean, we're fortunate to have some very, very intentional people with how they've trained their dogs and the lives that they've given their dogs in our circle and in their lives. So we just have a wealth of resources around us, just so many people that want to help us do this the right way. And it's going to be freaking hard, but it's a really good practice of like letting go of my usual clinging to my routines and my content calendar and just my work schedule and everything. So just like trying to give more of myself to another thing. It's both just such a joy to have a puppy around the house, but it's also good for me to just try to let things happen as they happen, because with the puppy, there's not that much that you can control. So that's an ambition I'm excited about. But I guess the other thing in regards to training and fitness, which is what we're here talking about, would just be going further with everything I'm doing content creation related. I think we follow each other on Instagram, and I have a very busy work schedule between coaching clients in person and being the manager of the gym that I work at. And so really all I've been able to commit myself to, having a partner and now having a puppy, is just the consistency of posting 5 times a week. And I'm very good at that. And I feel like I've really narrowed down my niche and the things that I want to post about and the person that I want to speak to. But the next step is just trying to dig a little bit deeper with actively trying to work with some people online, because I don't have any online clients at the moment. So just trying to think about what systems I can improve upon, how it is I can better, market myself, and just try to make it known of like, hey, I want to work with people. I'm not just doing this for the sake of doing it. I mean, I love content creation. It's such a fun hobby, and I just love providing value to people and helping them think differently about exercise, and hopefully sharing some knowledgeable tips with people. But the end goal would be to be able to slowly transition into more online training. Which, is that entirely what you do, is online personal training?
Like 90%. I have some stuff like boxing coaching I do. I have one client, a couple groups that I work with, but most of my income is online. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I would like to be able to do that at some point. I mean, I think we're going to be moving away from Boulder in the next year or so. And I love working with people in person. I think I'll always want to do in-person training because there's just so much joy that comes from that. But if I'm able to start, building up my actual business and with everything I've built in regards to content, I think that would be really cool. My gears are starting to turn about what's next on that front. So stay tuned, to be determined. I might be in a different position next time I come on to geek out about mobility.
I love it. Yeah. Well, I love huskies, love dogs. We got 2 dogs. We have 2 little dogs. And I mean, I always grew up obsessed with wolves. So huskies were like the closest thing, right? So it was 1-1. And then it's but a puppy. I haven't had to deal with puppies since I was a kid. So basically a puppy, and my mom was doing most of the work. So I just know they're a lot. So that's definitely an ambition. And yeah, I think I'm excited to see how your online comes, man. I can see how knowledgeable of a coach you are. I think you'll make a great coach. And online game is hard, but you just got to keep pumping out that message, and gradually they come, but it does take a long time. So just keep pumping out the great content that you have. And again, we will be having you back on the show here in the future. I got to go real deep on the mobility stuff, and I got to get my own experience, because I have so many ideas around mobility, but how that fits in for people, how to really actually make it apply to people, especially in a time efficient manner, because there's so much in fitness right now, right? So I think we can really pick apart a really good episode next time. So thanks so much, Cameron, for being on here. I really appreciate your time, and we will reach out again in the future.
Yeah, man. Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Rylan. I look forward to it. It was a pleasure.
Thank you again, Cameron. That was a fun chat. I'm absolutely going to chat with him again because we vibed. I said right from the get-go, you had a big weight loss journey. You had it tough when you were a kid. I immediately knew I was going to vibe with this guy. And not to mention, he was just so insightful. He had so many great thoughts, so much really in-depth ideas, but also making it tangible and understandable for everyone to kind of still appreciate the message in the end. And I have to admit, I just have a bias that once someone's been through the journey, I just feel like we're more like-minded. And I'll even say that I don't come from losing that much weight, but the food noise is real. I really appreciate that he wasn't too hard-nosed on it like I am. And I don't mean to be, but I just feel like that there are things, that emotional states, ideas, and concepts that if you've been through the struggle, you can value and appreciate more. And it's not that you don't understand or can't comprehend someone's going through something. It's like my girlfriend will go through, my fiance now, will be going through things and challenges that as a woman, only she knows and I can't, but I can appreciate. I think the term that I was looking for, you can appreciate the struggle someone goes through. But to truly empathize and to know what it's like, my biased belief is that you kind of got to go through it a little bit. However, it doesn't mean that I'm always 100% true on that, because again, I still have clients that I think I can give some help when they're trying to gain muscle, and how hard that is, because gaining muscle is really difficult for people who it's not easy to, because you have to be so fucking patient for it. a lot of people underestimate how slow muscle building really is. So even for myself and for most people, especially average size guy or girl, but let's say it's 150 to 200 pounds, you'd be lucky if you can get somewhere around 5 to 8 pounds of muscle if you gave yourself somewhere around 8 to 10 months to gain it. And then usually you're going to want to do a deficit phase to then net that muscle to see how much you actually maintain after. And then, I've been talking to clients about this recently, and they're like, whoa, man, they're like, that's it. And that's super demoralizing to hear. But then you got to think about, yeah, but you get to keep that, 5 to 6 pounds of muscle. What if you did that for 5 years? And I actually said that to one of my clients a few months ago. And they said, okay, so put that over the course of 5 years. You're going to be 25 pounds heavier. And he's like, oh, yeah, I could live with that 25 pounds of muscle. And you're going to look fucking different with 25 pounds of muscle. So my point there is, I can appreciate how demoralizing that is. I can appreciate that it's difficult to hear that, and that it's a slow process, and you got to keep showing up. You got to keep showing up. But I haven't lived it. And I do feel like living through the difficulties of weight loss adds a little bit more value to the experience. So I can appreciate on a deeper level what the food noise is like, and just the respect I have for that kind of weight loss, like him losing 60 pounds. And I never thought that I would have heard that right after. It's like, oh, I felt worse confidence after. I thought that was a very interesting pull to it. And then how we ended up stumbling upon a really cool conversation around, well, what is the right amount of body composition to concern yourself with, but like body image? Because we can say, okay, it's body dysmorphia. Okay, let's not worry about it at all. I don't care about what I look like. It's like, okay, maybe we got to worry about a little bit. Like you got to worry a little bit just about your waist circumference, because that's going to be correlated. I don't even see the word obesity, because if you put on enough muscle mass, then obesity won't necessarily be the indication, because I'm pretty sure I'm obese with how much muscle mass I have. But I try to keep my waist smaller. And that, whether or not you want to call that necessarily a association with your image, it is a part of your physical fitness and aesthetic. So it's super important to take into context how people are valuing things. And we, as you mentioned, you don't want it to be a slippery slope and just not care and be complacent. I think I just want to reiterate my sentiment and what Cameron said. Be proud of the body that you have. Be proud of your fitness. Always gratified, but never satisfied. And I say never satisfied because it's like, well, let's say you do get, leaner. Now work on maybe some muscle building goals. Maybe you're happy with the amount of muscle mass you have. Well, we talked about mobility. Maybe you try to see how mobile your hips can get. And having that pursuit of always wanting to improve your body is a healthy thing. As we know, that's what the podcast is all about, is the pursuit of things. And so I think this is super valuable for people to appreciate. It's okay to still worry about your aesthetic a little bit. And that spectrum is up to the individual. But what he had said, and we should have discussed it more, is like, what does health look like? Well, health looks like being able to do enough body weight push-ups, because that's body weight relative, and that's going to be an indication of your muscular endurance and strength. Being able to do pull-ups, being able to do things, physical tasks, that's healthy. Being able to sustain a certain heart rate on an aerobic fitness test, these things will actually be the measures that'll tell you whether or not you're going to live a long life. And if in the process you're doing that and you're lean enough, you'll probably live a very long life. And so we probably should have spoke more about that, but I thought it was really interesting that we talked about the aesthetic, kind of essentially it's almost like a revolution away from it. It was kind of the haze movement and how that was really taking over. And I think, I don't mean to push back against it, in that it's not healthy at every size, but there is many sizes. And I do think health can be on a bit of a spectrum. I've talked about my friend Mitch before, who's way more aerobically fit than me. His heart rate's like 40 beats per minute, which is like an elite level. He has far higher body fat percentage than me. I think at this point, he's going to live longer based on his heart health. So I think it can be seen on a spectrum. With that being said, I really want to reiterate this. We talked about this when that transformation, and he has said this. I wish we would have sat on this a bit more, is like that these things get easier. If you're going through your own transformation, you're going through your own challenge, is that it gets easier to show up for these things. I think it was super valuable that we talked about new people in gym. Like, you are the hardest workers. Training is not hard for me. Like, nutrition isn't hard for me. Not like it's hard for you. Now, I make a priority to it. And I talked about, like, it's a priority to me because it's my job, it's my identity, and all these things. I'm so intrinsically motivated to do it. It's not just about discipline anymore. It's just something I do. Like, in my spare time, I'm making high protein meals because I enjoy it. I'm excited to see what I can do. In my spare time, I'm strength training. So that's not hard for me. You are the courageous people that are doing the things that's not natural to you and having to show up again and again. And at the start, I'm sorry, you do need discipline. You do need to go through that discomfort. You do need to make your life harder just at the start. And then it gets easier. And it gets that willpower muscle. We talked about the willpower in the last episode, but it's actually, the willpower needs to be used less because you just get good at it. So it's not as hard to do. And very similar to the description that I had of my client who was brand new at exercise, who literally was doing body weight, added a dumbbell in her hands, added double the weight of the dumbbell and all of that, so on and so forth. Your resiliency to just showing up and doing the process gets that strong. Like, you get crazy strong at just being like, it's a tired day. I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it anyways. I recently had a discussion with one of my clients and, just reminding her that when you're tired, you got to find these moments and still show up anyways. It was one of my favorite stories of a client who was a vegetable farmer. I'm certain I've talked about it on the podcast. I got to say it again because it's really pertinent to this conversation. And that vegetable farmers are so fucking hardworking. Their harvest is like 10 weeks. Ours is like 3. They're not in fucking operating tractors and stuff. They're just on their feet grabbing vegetables. And he worked 15, 16-hour days, and then he'd get home and he said this, and I always try to people to remember this. He would say to his wife, "My day's not done. I got to go work out." And the words, "my day's not done," is, I think, the most wise phrase a person can use for themselves when they have a hard time showing up, whether it's for training or nutrition. Your day's not done. If the work's not done for that, day's not done. Even though we can put a timestamp at the end of when you're done at your job, you kind of should see fitness and nutrition as your job. Now, I am luckily blessed in that it is directly a part of my revenue. Absolutely it is. So I have that advantage. It's a huge advantage. And so that's why I can't relate to how difficult it is for you. But I do believe if you try to resonate with it to the point where you do see it like a job, like a task you have to do. Technically, you don't go to brush your teeth, but we all know what happens when you don't brush your teeth, and that's a pretty stinky breath person. You don't want to be that. And same thing happens with your health. So when you start showing up routinely, this eventually gets easier. It becomes an instinct of who you are. Now, we did have a really fun discussion about the why. Do you need to know the why? Are you motivated to know the why? And if you're listening to the podcast, it seems like you're pretty curious about the why. So that's great. I will say that I think I really sat into that discussion around maybe just do the thing. And I think I needed to hear that. It really kind of surprised me how much that set in with me. It was this discussion on one of Jordan Zayat's podcasts recently. And the woman he had on, she said how much his sentiment helped her of just do it anyways. You don't have to like it. And I started to realize, like, it's okay that I don't like mobility training. I just need to do it anyways. And I think I will actually end up liking it. I've done it a little bit in the past, as you may or may not have been listening to episodes when I was talking about doing the 30-minute or less challenge. That was a couple of years ago, which I plan on doing again pretty soon. But I was doing a range of motion kind of exercise routine before, and I did like the effect that it had, the feeling after, but I didn't really like it. And I don't think I will like it. Like, I like powerlifting and bodybuilding. And it finally, like, kind of clued in. I was like, you don't have to. Just do the thing. And you might be a person that just needs to do the thing on certain elements of your fitness. Maybe you won't enjoy making high protein treats like me. That's okay. You still should probably try to have protein. You still got to try to have appropriate calories every day. Maybe you won't like, even for people not to like the kind of foods that I suggest. I had a client be like, oh yeah, I thought for sure all my clients would like my cottage cheese blended protein powder and fruit. And my client's like, oh man, I hate textures like that. You just got to accept that people are going to have different preferences. But really coming back to just do the thing is a super important concept that you need to start with. And eventually you might just run into in fitness and health. There's certain things that we just need to do that thing. I luckily do enjoy most elements of fitness, but maybe this is the thing I don't get to enjoy, which is important because that means I have a hard. Strength training, easy hard. It's hard, heavy weight, but it's easy for me to do that hard thing. It's like cardio. I actually don't mind doing cardio. Most resistance I have to it is just my knee. My knee's still something I'm working on. And I still go do zone 2 cardio because it's healthy and I actually enjoy it. I enjoy doing high intensity cardio. But to have that hard, I think is really important for everyone to appreciate that that's really good for you. There is this thing in the brain that Andrew Huberman has brought up from research. Probably talked about it before, but I think, again, very helpful to talk about here. The anterior mid-cingulate cortex, if I do remember. And this part of the brain they're just discovering is basically the willpower muscle. It gets smaller when you're actually, sorry, it's small in obese people. It's big in athletes. It will get smaller when you don't do anything hard, and it gets bigger when you're doing things that you don't like. Now, even if you like doing the thing and it's a hard thing, so like me doing strength training doesn't help it grow. But if you're doing things that you don't like, you keep doing them, it'll grow. And so there is a part of the brain, part of the anatomy that is actually being enhanced for you showing up to do the thing you don't want to do. And so I feel like mobility training is going to be my thing. I talked about it in the previous podcast. Maybe I can do this, and I've been putting it off, but I'm going to lean into it here in the fall because I had a really eye-opening moment for me when I was at the gym with Angelina, and I saw this guy doing leg extensions, and I'm like, what would I give to be able to just have no problems with my knee to do? I can do leg extensions, but it was kind of, some days have to have a workaround on it so it doesn't hurt. And I'm like, what would I give to have that? And then it's like, well, that's a fucking answerable question, man. What would you give? Because you could. You just got to try the mobility program. Give up a little bit of time in your training to do the thing that you know that will help that. And so I think this is helpful for everyone to ask that question. Have you ever asked yourself, what would I give to be in shape? Well, would you give up a bit more time training? Would you give a little bit more time to nutrition? Would you give up being a little bit less satisfied in each meal? What would you give? Because the parameters of what you need to give are actually there. Would you give up that discomfort of not wanting to track calories? So I think that's a really valuable lesson. And I'm really looking forward to diving into the mobility training. I am hopefully doing that in the near future here. Great discussion there. Cameron did a great breakdown of the value of mobility training. Mobility training is strength training seen on a spectrum. And I'm looking forward to diving into it more with him because there's an idea of what mobility is. And I think sometimes we get confused with like dynamic exercises, dynamic stretching, and I kind of call that mobility, but that would be like what you call CARs, controlled articular rotations, which are helpful. So form mobility, and there's just many classifications. There's many different exercise types within mobility training. But I'm really looking forward to it to know what I can learn. Off air, me and Cameron were talking about it. He said all these different things that this guy has in the program. So I'll be giving you all that updates in the future, and I definitely will have Cameron on in the future because he's got a ton of knowledge and experience in this stuff. And he's a younger guy, newer in the industry, but fuck, he's smarter than I was when I started as a trainer. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how deep we can go in our next conversation. I hope you learned a lot from this episode. Please go check out Cameron. I think he's got definitely a wealth of knowledge, especially if you're someone who's really interested in the basics, understanding some simple training. I think he's got something for you for sure. And you're going to learn a lot from people like that who really speak to that audience, because I don't always do that. I kind of speak almost too high level quite often because I'm more interested in being a nerd sometimes. But I think you can get a lot of value from that. Please share this episode with anyone you think that is helpful for. Please leave a review, because those reviews are the only thing that's going to help this podcast grow. But no matter what, I'll always thank you as a listener. So thank you, because I appreciate you spending the time just listening to us talk about fitness and health and rant away, because we're just trying to help you chase your own ambition, because life is not about the pursuit of happiness, but rather the happiness within your pursuit. I'll catch you next time.